Hello, everyone out there. Happy Wednesday night. Oh, I'm sorry, Thursday night. I'm living in the past. We are coming at you live from the Oxnard Police Department, downtown Oxnard, California. We have a special Q&A for you this evening. We've got two special guests. And as you are at home watching on Facebook, we do encourage you to go ahead and submit any questions that you may have for our guests in the chat thread there on the Facebooks. And as we move along throughout the half hour this evening, we will get to as many questions as we can, as you may have throughout the night. It's such a pleasure to to be with y'all every week here on the virtual platform, since we can't meet with you in your neighborhoods or your regular neighborhood meetings. But this evening, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the Sergeant of our Crime Reduction Unit, Sergeant Greg Harasymowicz. Good evening, Sarge.
Hi, Paul. How you doing? Good to see you.
I'm doing well. Thanks. Great to see you, and thank you for joining us.
Of course.
If you've watched any of these over the weeks here, you know that I like to start the show by kind of just getting to know you and what makes you tick. And I like to reel it all the way back to the very beginning, to the earliest days of Greg Harasymowicz. Born and raised where?
So I was actually born in New Jersey.
Wow.
But when I was 1 year old, I moved to Buffalo, New York, and stayed there all the way through high school, and then came out to California when I went to school at Cal State Northridge. So it was there, and that's the reason why I'm actually out here, because I went to Cal State Northridge.
Okay. And your major was?
I was actually liberal studies. I wanted to be a teacher. That was my longtime goal, along with wanting to be a police officer at the same time. My mother's a teacher, and she had a big influence on my life and the things I like to do, and I like to teach and coach and those things. So that was part of it. But then also in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a police officer.
Did you have any law enforcement in the family?
No, I have some distant uncles who I don't know who are police, but none of my family members really had an effect on my police career. It was something that I wanted to do by myself, alone, something that I thought of.
Wow. Okay. So was it pretty immediate right out of college that you made this decision that you wanted to take this career path?
Yeah. So I was maybe 3 months away from graduating when I started the process. And so I was hired right after graduation. Maybe by 2 weeks, I was in the academy. So yeah, it was right after. And what's interesting, and this is like a long time story, is going back to my mother. My mother tells me that while, yes, I wanted to be a teacher, and that was part of my major, she actually had a photograph and of a painting and drawing that I made, where I said in kindergarten, when I grow up, I'm going to be a police officer. Now, I know a lot of people say, oh, I want to be a police officer, firefighter, doctor. But she said from the very beginning, you were always about doing the right thing, trying to steer people in the right direction, try to be a good kid. And that she told me that, I don't remember, but when I was very young, I always said I wanted to be a police officer. So it's very interesting.
Wow. So does she still have that picture?
She does, actually. She has it inside of her house, and it's framed. So she was going to give it to me at some point. I said, no, you can keep it, because it's like a nice memento for a mother to have. But yeah, she still has it.
That is awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, when you say you entered the academy straight out of Cal State University, Northridge, CSUN, was it the Oxnard Police Academy?
Actually, it was the Ventura County Criminal Justice Training Center. Right after I graduated, I was with the Oxnard Police Department. I lateraled over to the Los Angeles Police Department, and then eventually lateraled back after there was some time. So yeah, it was 20 years ago this week. I actually started the academy. So this is my 20th year in law enforcement.
And what brought you back?
Well, Los Angeles is a great agency, there's no doubt. But I really love the city of Oxnard, and a number of things that I love is the interactions that our police officers have with our community members. Among the best that I've ever been around. When I go to trainings, I hear about the issues with community-oriented policing, and maybe some agencies are trying to figure it out. It's been ingrained in our police department for as long as I've been a part of it. And so for me, that's a core value of what we need to be as police officers. Obviously, you can tell by the way I'm talking, I really enjoy going out and meeting people. I like to be social and I like to learn about people. So the interactions between the community and myself always come pretty easy. But this is something that our police department does very well. And it starts from the top. Obviously, you know, because you work here, but our Chief Whitney, he's a big proponent of going out, being a part of the community, being a community member, understanding the community. And so that's one of the reasons why I came back. And I just really love the city of Oxnard.
Wow. And so you're in your 20th year of law enforcement. How long have you been a sergeant?
I've been a sergeant since 2016. And I've really enjoyed all of my years. What's interesting is that when I first got on the job, they would say, hey, it's going to fly by. And I remember rolling my eyes at that and thinking, no, I mean, I still remember day one of the academy. And then I remember getting through field training. And then I remember going to Los Angeles. I remember coming back. I remember doing all the different things. But the truth is, it's true. It's flown by. So the past 4 years have been just like the rest of my career. I first was in patrol. And then I became a field training officer, which is a person that trains the new officers as they get out of the academy. And then I promoted to a position where I was involved in the community, specifically as a beat coordinator in the northwest part of our city and what's referred to in our city as Beat 11. After that, I returned back to being a field training officer as a senior officer, and then soon after promoted to sergeant. I was involved in patrol. I was an FTO sergeant. I'm involved with the body-worn camera committee. I'm a part of our Oxnard Police Department University. And then after being a part of patrol, I went into internal affairs. So for the past 2.5 years, I was an internal affairs investigator. That rank is held only by sergeants. There's only 2 internal affairs investigators. And then about 8 months ago, I took the assignment of crime reduction where I'm at now.
Sorry, I had to get up and Chief Whitney. I think his ears were burning. He poked his head in here like he had a little note for me. Okay, he texted it to me. He wants me to ask you if you play cornhole, and I guess he made a trip down the hall here to see if you've ever played in a cornhole tournament. I feel this is loaded. This may be loaded.
So in fact, I had the best partner of anyone at the cornhole tournament 2 years in a row. Chief Whitney and I were partners at our police union's annual picnic.
Nice.
And last year we came in second. That's just the way it was. We played a really tough team, but this past year we came in first and we won prizes, and I was really proud. Unfortunately, and I'm very competitive when it comes to sports, and the chief knows that, which is probably why he selected me. And so I trained a lot for cornhole, and yes, we won. I was very happy about that.
You were also very competitive in our Movember competition. I remember this past year, getting the best mustache going, and you won.
I mean, if there's one thing I'm not afraid to do, it's compete. And I really enjoy the camaraderie it builds. And if the chief's watching, which I'm sure he is, I also defeated him in the Movember competition, along with the 2 assistant chiefs as well and another commander. So I was number 1.
Yeah. I'm sure he loves hearing that again. So tell me about your current role. You're the sergeant of the crime reduction unit. Tell me about that.
Sure. So the crime reduction unit is a unit within our agency that has 7 employees. What we do is we look at incidents, crime, contacts with the public, and we take all of that information that we receive, we turn it into data that's usable, and we analyze it in a way that makes sense so that we can try and find ways to reduce crime and find ways to make people as safe as we possibly can. We also look at ways in which we can become more efficient. So in the office that I work in, we have 3 crime analysts and crime analyst data tech. And then in the other office that we have someone that works directly with the courts and court packets, and then our body-worn camera specialist. Those are the people that I work with. So day-to-day basis, we essentially will pull stats. We get all the information that happened the day before when it comes to crimes, reports, calls for service, contacts with the public by police, traffic stops, pedestrian contacts by police. And we try to find ways in which to make that data meaningful. Sometimes it's taking the raw data, turning it into statistics like how many traffic stops we've made, how many arrests we've made. Other times it's trying our very best to determine where we believe crime may occur. And then other times we're trying to find ways to speed up processes within our department. So I'm the supervisor of that unit. I have monthly meetings with various groups within our departments, and then I have to provide stats to obviously our chiefs and then our commanders within our agency, and then also the patrol officers that we work with. So we do a lot there. We have a number of great crime reduction tools that we use, from our crew TV to our prolific offenders to different tools we have. So that's essentially crime reduction unit, and that's who I supervise.
And if anyone out there who's watching has any questions for Sergeant Harasymowicz in the Crime Reduction Unit, go ahead and add them to the comments here on Facebook, and we'll get to them before we're done with our quick conversation here. And we do have another guest this evening. And before we bring him in and introduce him, I just wanted to ask you briefly, Sarge, what kind of role you see technology playing and taking moving forward in crime reduction? What advancements have you seen lately, and how does it affect the work that you do?
Sure. So one of the largest ways in which we've improved using technology is body-worn cameras to start. And then when you look at, I guess, the tributaries from body-worn cameras, it talks about audio, video, photograph taking, that kind of encapsulated data. Obviously, social media plays a large part in the way in which we do our job. But moving forward, the future of law enforcement, along with our continued contacts with our community, is going to be reaching out to our community in certain ways, but also taking data, finding ways to solve crimes, and doing that using technology. I know that we have the CEO of Flock Safety on, and that's one of the tools we also can use as well. We have our LPR cars. We use our body-worn cameras. We have different cameras throughout the city. So it's the tools and technology that you're referring to moving forward. It's going to be a mainstay. And I'd say the longer we go, the farther, the closer I get to my retirement years, I think that technology is going to play a large role, much larger than it was 20 years ago when I started.
Now, you mentioned LPR cars. What does that stand for?
So essentially that's license plate reading cars. And those are cameras that are set up on police vehicles that essentially will take data. They can find out where vehicles are. They can find out and take photographs of different things. And the idea is very simply to learn and to take data that we have and to make it meaningful. So those LPR cars take thousands of photographs, and those photographs are used with data and analytics to determine a lot of different criminal things. So.
Very cool. And we've mentioned a couple of times now our other special guest joining us this evening. We're excited. He's our first non-police department employee joining us, and our first not local person joining us. He's joining us all the way from Atlanta, Georgia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the CEO of Flock Safety, Garrett Langley. Hi, Garrett.
Good afternoon. How are you, Paul?
I'm doing well. It's early evening here. And what time is it? What time is it there?
It's 8:45.
Well, thank you for joining us this late in the evening for you. Let's just briefly give us the introduction. What is Flock Safety?
Yeah, so Flock Safety is a crime fighting company. About 3 years ago, I was sitting at my dining room table, probably around this time of night, and just asked my wife the question, why does crime exist? And from there, it led this rabbit hole of exploration to realize crime exists because you can get away with it. And I'm sure the sergeant would agree, if you give the men and women of Oxnard PD the evidence they need, they will solve every single case. But without evidence, you can't do anything. So that kind of came this journey of, well, how do we get law enforcement more evidence? And what they told me was, we need license plates. License plates is like this unique identifier that we can quickly turn into actionable, objective evidence that leads to an arrest. So I called a buddy of mine who studied at Georgia Tech with me here in Atlanta. I happen to be an electrical engineer. He was computer science. And we took really the innards of a modern smartphone, like your iPhone or your Android, and said, what if we could build a better product for law enforcement and for neighborhoods that didn't require infrastructure, that could act like a detective? And so we built this product. It tracks cars and reads license plates. It's specially designed for neighborhoods and police departments. And we knew we were onto something because within the first 60 days of putting this camera in my neighborhood, Atlanta Police Department made an arrest. And this wasn't a heinous crime. This was someone stole a bicycle from a garage. And the Atlanta Police Department, who's quite a large agency, with that evidence, though, made an arrest. So we both quit our jobs, went full force into the company, and we're proud to say we serve over 700 cities now across the country, and including Oxnard and Port Hueneme and Ventura, and a growing number of cities in the LA area.
Yeah, I know it's already implemented in Port Hueneme, and some residents here in Oxnard already have it. But I appreciate your broad brush strokes about community cameras and helping the police department. But what are these cameras, and where do they go, and how are they set up?
Yeah, if you think about, the camera has two goals, like proactive engagement of law enforcement and reactive evidence gathering. So one of the cool things is that if you're in a neighborhood or an apartment complex, or you're a small business owner in Oxford, we do a lot of work with malls and small business owners, you could deploy this camera. Now we do the installation, we do all the hard work. You write a check once a year. And if a stolen car or otherwise wanted vehicle drives by the camera, it within a few seconds detects that vehicle, checks it against a national database and a local database inside of Oxnard. And if there's a hit, officer gets immediately notified. And so what we can hopefully do is prevent someone who's probably up to no good doing it where you care about. And now that's the kind of proactive side, right? The second thing is we are capturing all that evidence, right? We capture the make of the car, the model, the color, the license plate, et cetera. And so what can happen is, let's say there is unfortunately a home break-in or a stolen car, and all you have from a grainy traditional camera is, hey, it looked like a red truck. Well, then Sergeant here can go in and say, I'm looking for red trucks in this area. And it actually, using machine vision, detects, well, here's the only 2 red trucks. So now you can't make an arrest off of that, but that's the kind of evidence you need to start to build a case.
And so where do these cameras go, and how are they set up?
Yeah, so one of the cool things is they don't require any infrastructure. So if you drive around Port Hueneme or Ventura or in some of the neighborhoods in Oxnard, you'll see these poles with solar panels and what looks like little black footballs on them. And so we typically put them at the entrance and exits of neighborhoods, of key intersections, perimeter of the city. And then they go about 15 feet up in the air, and they have a solar panel on top. And just like your smartphone, they use LTE or 4G to communicate with the cloud.
And who initiates like getting one, having it installed?
Yeah, so I mean, we work with traditional HOAs, gated or not gated. Most of our customers don't have gates, and then in a lot of cases too, it just takes one person to care, and then we can work with that person to build that community engagement, to get their neighbors on board, collect some funds, and then get a camera installed. And then once we get that go ahead from them, we have full-time technicians in the area who come in, do the installation, do the maintenance, and do the monitoring as well.
You have full-time technicians. So do they come out from Atlanta or where you're located?
We've got technicians spread across the country. So we have a few based in LA.
I see. Okay, and so you started. I assume you started in Atlanta, and then
right.
How did it kind of grow from there?
Yeah, so we started the company in Atlanta, and our core market has definitely been Atlanta. I think we serve something like maybe 80 or 90% of the cities in Georgia at this point. This incredible opportunity. And what's really exciting for someone like the Sergeant as well is, in some of those early customers where we've been live for 2 years, 3 years, et cetera, they've seen a 70% reduction in crime. So there's this common saying in technology that the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. If you live in Cobb County in Georgia, you're living in the future. Stolen cars don't exist anymore. People aren't breaking into homes because they know if you do it, you get caught. You go around Marietta, 34% crime reduction last year. Like, there's something there. Wow. And so that type of word of mouth happens both in the criminal network and in the law enforcement network and the neighborhood network. And so LA was definitely one of our early markets. One, due to its size, but two, just due to its population. There's so many people in LA that kind of word got out, and then it travels fast. So I think it was actually, I'd have to say Rolling Hills Estates was the first city in LA, and then Walnut, and then Rosemead, Ventura, Ontario, Huntington Beach. I'm missing a lot. San Marino, Port Miami. Obviously, I could probably keep going, but I might bore your audience.
Well, we do have a question from Amy on the Q&A, which I was kind of wondering too. So it's not these cameras aren't police department cameras. They're neighborhood cameras that the neighborhood has installed, and then kind of not supervises, but moderates. Yeah.
So the way we think about it is there's really only one organization that can make an arrest in the city, and that's the police department. So what can we do as civilians to help? And there's obviously programs like, you can volunteer, but for some of us who don't want to volunteer, and we'd like to use our check instead, what the neighborhoods do is effectively pay for these cameras to be installed, and then the police department automatically has access to those cameras. Now, so does the neighborhood, right, if they want to. But it's actually interesting. We have a lot of neighborhoods who say, no, we don't actually ever want to see the camera. Like, we don't want to see the footage. We have no need for it because we can't arrest anyone. What we want to do is make sure that if a crime does occur in our neighborhood, that Oxnard PD has all the evidence they could need to make an arrest. So in a lot of cases, yes, the neighborhood collects the funds, they pick the locations, we help them do that, we do the installation, and then it's Oxnard PD that's actually the ones looking at the cameras and looking at the footage.
And Maricela is asking on the Q&A here, what is, how are they similar privacy-wise to like the picture ticket cameras? Can you just comment on in terms of privacy, how that's all set up?
And that's a great question. I didn't catch the woman's name, but thank you for asking that question. So we take privacy really seriously. The first thing we do is we have a 30-day retention period. And so what that means is, if you drove by a camera today, and 31 days from now, that footage is permanently deleted. And so what we believe is that, at our core, we think life's about trade-offs. And there's a trade-off of public safety and civil liberties. And so we recognize, putting a camera on a street, it is some level of invasion of privacy, right? But our argument has always been, but criminal activity is even worse, right? I don't want someone breaking into my home. That's actually the deepest invasion of my privacy. You've actually broken into my house. And so the question is, how do we enable law enforcement to get the evidence they need while managing that privacy side? So the first thing we do is, we do delete that footage after 30 days. The second thing we do for neighborhoods in particular is allow them, if they want to have what's called a resident safe list. And so if you're one of the paying members of the camera, you can choose to opt out, never get recorded by that camera. Because if it's your camera, you should have control over it. So we do as much as we can, kind of try to find that delicate balance of helping law enforcement clear more cases, have a safer community, while at the same time recognizing that, people want to have some privacy.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like neighborhood watches, which have it's like an electronic neighborhood watch almost, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you think about it too, Paul, like the data we're capturing is no different than if you paid, like a high school kid during the summer to sit on the street corner and just write down the license plates. We don't look inside the car. We don't capture people's faces. We're focused on what is truly objective, which is there's a car, it has a license plate. We don't know who's inside of it, but we know it's there.
Have you, so you mentioned you have a pretty strong presence in Port Hueneme, and we've been working with Sergeant Harasymowicz. It is going into some neighborhoods already in Oxnard?
Yeah, it's already in Rose Island, which is near the intersection of Channel Islands and Rose.
And if neighborhoods out there that are watching want to get involved with this or have any more questions, how do they get more information or contact us?
The best thing is to go to our website. It's just www.flocksafety.com. There's a ton of information about the product. There's a phone number. There's an email form if you want to have someone call you back, get a demo, talk to one of our security consultants to kind of overview your neighborhood or your street. And we've got people ready and able to help out.
Wow. And is there anything else we haven't really mentioned or touched on that you want to go ahead and let people know about the product or the program?
I mean, definitely check us out. Whether you live in Oxnard or right nearby and happen to be tuning in, we'd love to talk to you about your neighborhood and how we can help make it as safe as possible.
That's awesome. Anything further from the Sergeant Harasymowicz?
I can only talk about what I've seen so far with flock safety, and what I do like also in a historic concern that we've tried to alleviate throughout years is communication between agencies. And one of the keys that I love about flock safety is that the city of Ventura and the city of Port Hueneme that also have these cameras, we all can be in communication together. So that we all share the information. So it's not one city that's close by is getting information, but kind of holding on to it. We all can share in what's happening. So that's why I really like the product.
That's amazing. It sounds very exciting, and I'm always excited. I love toys and technology and seeing how technology helps us advance in our regular day to day. But seeing it actually work in law enforcement, crime prevention. I think it's very encouraging, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Carol on Facebook would love to hear that website again.
Yes, it's flock, like the birds, safety, like how you'll feel, .com. So www.flocksafety.com.
All right. Well, Garrett, thank you so much for joining us, being our first guest from out of state, from outside the department. Very exciting stuff to hear about, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And Sergeant Harasymowicz, thank you so much for being our guest this week. And any last words from either of you?
Great. I'm all good. This was great. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching at home, everybody there on the Facebook. And we'll see you next week with another live Q&A from the Oxnard Police Department. Thank you, Garrett. Thank you, Sarge. Have a great night, everybody.